We'll watch for it to pop up. The funniest posts on Facebook. Oh my gosh. All right, well, let's refresh the page and see if the stream is there yet. Hey, yeah, there it is. Okay. Have I heard back from Mr. Tar yet? No? Okay. Oh. All right, let's like and share. Like and share, like and share. Hey, everybody on the network. Glad you're joining us. We are getting ready for a good episode. Of course, it always is. And let's see, let's also share this over to the TWiRT page. And of course, it wants me to switch profiles. And then it starts playing the audio in my ear, so I hear two audios. That's always disconcerting until I get out of it. And Facebook still has that error where it warns you about leaving the page. Gosh.
This display on my monitor has a thing that says screen sharing on it.
It does, but it doesn't
work?
offer the control. Well, not that it doesn't work. It doesn't work appropriately to give Suncast the control that he wants.
Gotcha.
Oh, it doesn't do both. Gotcha. You know. And if you are doing screen sharing, you really need to have two physical screens on your computer, so you can monitor, and manipulate the one that you're actually sharing. Because otherwise, you lose situational awareness, I think the pilots call it.
Yep. Very familiar with that. And I have 3 screens, so I'm okay with that.
Ah, well, there you go. So you're prepared. Most people would not be. And let's share this to a group like the Broadcasting Club. Oh, we should share this to an LPFM group. Let me see if I've got one of those that's share to a group. LPFM. Tech Advice, Audio Hub, LPFM Private Group, LPFM Engineering. And I seem to be members of all these. Wonder which one's good, best. Dave, are you a member of an LPFM group?
Yeah, probably. I don't know which ones.
Do you know which one it is?
When I go through my groups, I look for last active, and if it's more than 2 years, I just delete it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I shared it to one.
Okay.
One group.
And we don't have to talk just about engineering. We can talk about who's qualified to be a licensee.
Oh yeah, I definitely want to do that. Yeah.
What the life of an LPFM station is like. I'm associated with a couple.
I haven't heard anything from Chris yet, and here we are, top of the hour. I know that he's coming to Nashville this weekend. I don't know if he's on the road yet, though. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. And Suncast, I'm sure if Chris shows up, you will say something about that. Take a deep breath, Kirk. It's going to be all right. All right, this is going to be episode 657 for August the 17th, 2023. It has been almost 3 years since Dave Doherty was last with. Dave, it seems sooner than that, but we'll talk about that in a second. We'll let that graphic come back. And so here we go. We'll start the show. Hey, everybody on the network. Glad you've been waiting around for us. We're just a few seconds after the top of the hour, but we'll go ahead and start This Week in Radio Tech in 3, 2. Hey, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech, the show where we talk about everything from the microphone to that light bulb at the top of the tower. I am Kirk Harnack, your host, and I'm here in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville, Tennessee. Delighted to be here. It's another hot end of summer day, although it's not as hot as I guess it could be. It's 83 degrees and sunshiny here in Nashville. We had thunderstorms come through a day or two ago, and a little cool air came in behind it, so that was refreshing and nice. I'm sure we'll get back to the hot weather here in the next few days. Chris Tarr may be joining us. He's not here right now. We're checking in with Chris to see if he's going to be here. But importantly, who is here is our guest. And our guest is Dave Doherty. It's been almost 3 years since Dave's been on. Dave, welcome in. Good to see you.
Hey, good to see you, Kirk.
Dave Doherty, you're here to answer questions and to tell us about an event that's actually coming up in about half a month, about 3 weeks away, and that is something to do with LPFM. Give us a little elevator pitch on what's coming up in the next hour.
Okay, well, we're going to talk about LPFM, what the service is, who's qualified to be a licensee, and we'll take a look at some engineering studies that I pre-produced for the show, and that obviously can be done anywhere in the country. Um, the next event, the big event for LPFM now is a filing window for new stations, and also major changes for existing stations that would be changed from one location to another that's farther than the normal distance or stuff. Usually in a window like this, you don't get many major change applications. The new station window opens November 1st, and it will be open for a week. It's the first one that we've had for new LPFM stations in 10 years. So it's a big deal.
Okay. And
yeah, go ahead.
Dave, I'm sorry, I was confused. For some reason, I was in my head, I was thinking that the window opens September. Is it September, or you just said November?
The window opens in November. What happens on September 1st
Oh.
is a freeze for existing stations, low power stations and translators to propose changes. So between now and September 1st, if anybody's been thinking about making a change, this would be the time to go ahead and file that application. Once the application's in, it gets cut off on September 1st, and all LPFM applicants have to respect that application, protect that application.
Okay,
So
that's making
that's
sense
the
now.
first
Okay,
event. And then as
yeah.
we get closer, there'll be an announcement about changes to full service stations. There'll be a much shorter freeze on that, probably just maybe even just the duration of the window. And the whole idea here is to give everybody an equal set of data to work with. Where are stations? Because LPFMs are allocated based on distance from other stations. And so if you have a station that could be potentially in conflict, it's moving, you need to know
Mhm.
that, and that can't change during the window because everybody's assuming they have the same data, and all applications filed during a filing window are assumed to be filed as of close of business on the last day of the window. They're all considered contemporaneous. There's no advantage to filing on day one, and there's no disadvantage to filing on the last day.
Gotcha. Okay,
They're
well,
all
that makes
considered
sense.
equal.
Hey, Dave, we're gonna hear from Nautel, but before we do, I got two very quick questions for you
Sure.
that kind of have to do with our one of our sponsors. What transmitter power output level do LPFMs typically use? What range of powers would they need to purchase?
Uh, Depends on the antenna
Sure,
and on the
sure.
height, because once you get above 30 meters above average terrain, the amount of effective radiated power you can run drops dramatically as you increase with height. But for a
Right, right.
typical 100-watt ERP, 30-meter above average terrain, uh, if you don't have a second adjacent window kind of interference showing that requires a special antenna, you're probably going to use one bay or maybe two.
Hmm.
If you use two bays, the transmitter power output will likely be something like 120, 130 watts. Use one bay, probably more like 250. So,
Okay, okay.
depending on where you're going, there's a lot of transmitters out there that are 150 watts. There's a lot that are 300 watts. You're
Yeah, okay. That
somewhere
makes sense.
between those two
Mhm.
models.
And of all the radio stations that I'm part owner of, with Larry Fuss and some other owners at our different properties, none of we don't have any LPFMs, and I've never engineered for an LPFM. We do have some translators, and we have a number of full power stations. Now, the other question is, can an LPFM transmit HD radio?
Yes, no reason why
Yes.
you couldn't.
Okay.
Um, the economics of it may be way out of reach, but if you
Yes.
have a
Yes.
specific need, like for example, a college or a tribe or something, where there's a specific controlled audience where you can basically hand out HD receivers and operate a second or third program service, there's no reason why you couldn't do it.
Okay.
I've got
Okay. All
I've
right.
got two translators that are running HD on mountaintops that have fabulous coverage out here.
Well, yeah, yeah, good deal. Okay, that makes sense. Now, Dave, we're gonna take just a minute and
Sure.
talk about our sponsor, Nautel. And I'm going to ask Suncast if he'll show the web page for Nautel's VS. Oh, no, we're going to back up. I'm sorry, Suncast. I want the VS series of transmitters. I'm sorry if I thought I sent you the right link, but I may not have. Nautel has been making this VS series of transmitters for quite a long time, and I've got a few of these. Um, and I never have installed HD before myself. I've consulted many stations that have installed HD. Typically, I have consulted them on audio processing for HD because my employer, one of our companies, is Omnia, and so we've been in the world of HD processing or processing for HD as well as FM for years now, and even some AMs, AM plus HD. But just recently, actually, just earlier this week, was my first opportunity, along with my friend Russell Lafferty, to install an HD. And we did it. The transmitter we have, the one that we've been kind of saving and using other places so we could finally put it in place here, was a Nautel VS 2.5. So it's 2.5 kilowatts. And we've used it in service for several stations just for analog service. But we knew we were doing HD on this new station in Oxford, Mississippi at Ole Miss University. And that's where it is. The station belongs to us, not Ole Miss. And so we had to purchase the HDFM exciter from Nautel, and we turned off the exciter that's built into the VS series. And then we added the HD Multicast Plus, which is the importer and exporter together in one box. And oh my goodness, Russ and I pulled the VS series transmitter out of the rack, and there's some jumpers that you move around in order to prepare it to be fed from an external exciter. And it comes with instructions, they're easy to follow. Well, we take the panels, the top and the bottom, off this transmitter, and we start finding notes written by yours truly, where I had to replace an amplifier pallet and replaced, I think, a power supply, maybe a fan. I mean, the transmitter's 10 years old. So it had a couple of things that I fixed on it over the years. Well, in fact, there's even a YouTube video of me replacing one of the amplifier pallets on this very transmitter. I couldn't believe this is the same transmitter. I kind of had lost track of that. So we did that, Russ and I, and put it back together, hooked the HD exciter to it, and then the multicast. And I'm just so impressed that I can use a 10-year-old transmitter that we had. I mean, it was designed for this, but we had no intention originally of using it for HD service. And we modified it according to some simple directions, added the HD exciter, added the HD multicast box, and wow, we got 3 HD channels, HD 1, 2, and 3, on the air pretty easily. Was just really impressed by how that worked out. And this is because of the really good engineering that Nautel does. So that's why I'm singing their praises, not just because they're a sponsor, but I just want to tell you about my happy, good experience with a Nautel VS series transmitter this past week, and just really love it. We had to upgrade the software in it. That went just fine. Put it onto a thumb drive and let it do its thing. Took about 20 minutes or so to get that all done, and it just worked out well. So we're delighted. We're transmitting in Oxford, Mississippi. We're transmitting FM, plus HD1, HD2, and HD3, and they sound fantastic. Just we're using Omnia processing, of course, on all the signals, and it sounds so good. So thanks a lot, Nautel, for writing good manuals, making it easy to do, and a little bit of tech support along the way. We really appreciate it. And Nautel is a great place to stay tuned to for their Transmission Talk Tuesdays. We'll tell you about the next one whenever it is scheduled and give you a little fair warning about that. I'll be having dinner with Jeff Welton this coming Sunday evening, and I'll be asking him about that coming up. All right. Thanks a lot, Nautel, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Nautel.com is the website. All right. Let's see. Dave Doherty is with us, and Dave's talking about LPFM. And Dave, LPFM, I'm a fairly typical engineer, but somehow I've just missed doing any work for or with any LPFM station. So I'm a sponge soaking up the information that you're telling me about LPFMs. Can you give me a little tiny bit of history? Why were LPFMs even made into a thing? As opposed to translators. What's different about LPFMs, and what are they really meant to do?
Okay, so an LPFM is intended to be a local community radio voice covering a small area. You know, typically going to be associated with a school or a church or a local organization. Um, you can only have one unless you're a community that's operating a public um, service on the LPFM, and then you can have two. And tribes can have two
Mm-hmm.
as long as both transmitters are located on tribal grounds and they're
Hmm.
licensed to the tribe. They're strictly non-commercial. You cannot get an LPFM license as an individual. Only organizations are permitted to have LPFM licenses. Um, Best if they're IRS certified 501c3,
Mm-hmm.
not for profit, and certified by the state. Um, and the fundamental thing is you just cannot run commercials. That's no announcement that um, compares somebody's product with somebody else's. Say, this is the best widget that was ever made. Can't do it. You can't have a call to action like if you listen to PBS a lot or NPR a lot, you won't hear them say on a sponsorship announcement. Sponsorship announcements are okay on LPFM.
Okay, so
But
underwriting announcements are okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
But you will not hear on NPR an underwriting announcement that says, go to the website at www blah, 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 blah for more information, because that is a call to action. That is
Right.
asking the
No.
listener to do something.
Right.
You will hear more information is available at that same website.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
And that's
Okay.
why
Okay.
that
So.
peculiar
Mhm.
language is pretty much endemic in NPR sponsorship ads. It's the same with LPFM or with not NPR, just any non-commercial radio or TV station. Um, no call to action. No, next time you're in town, visit so and so's restaurant because the food's really good there. Not none of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. But
But
we could
but
say,
sponsorship
Dave,
announcements are fine.
what we could say, this hour of programming is made possible by a generous grant from Dave Doherty, proprietor of Dave Doherty's Greasy Spoon, and that they're located at blah blah blah, open
Yeah.
for breakfast and lunch every day.
You might
Because
not
I didn't
even.
call to action, I just gave information.
Yeah, and that's probably about as far as you can possibly go.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
okay,
it's very very limited. So nobody's going to make any money running an LPFM. Okay? To begin with, the coverage area is very small. Um, you have the same programming challenge on a 100-watt LPFM as you have on a 100-kilowatt Class C station. That programming requirement runs 24/7. You got to feed it. You got to continue to feed programming to it all the time. For an LPFM, the minimum, well, not the minimum, but what they look for in evaluating applications is a commitment to program live 8 hours a day. That's a
oh,
pretty significant
oh,
commitment.
it is,
Now, that can be a DJ studio records, it could be live performances, it could be anything like that. What it cannot be is a satellite feed, an automation system there plugging away for 24 hours a day with somebody programming it from somewhere else. Um, there is a requirement for a local studio in the community. There is a requirement that all board members on the organization be located within 10 miles of the transmitter location in a large community and 20 miles in smaller communities. So
Wow.
it's very,
Wow.
very focused on localism. The Local
Mm.
Community Radio Act was basically designed to support this kind of local programming, where it was perceived that there was a significant need for it, and there's a lot of LPFM stations out
So my question then would be: it seems if you want, if your organization thinks an LPFM is what you need to serve the people interested in the same things you're interested in, let's say a tribal community or an ethnic community in a city. Here in Nashville, where I live, there's a large Hispanic community, mostly in a certain area of town, although spread out. There's a large number of people from East Africa, Ethiopians and Kenyans that I don't know if they're spread out or if they're in a certain area of town, but they're definitely areas of town, and certainly many cities have this. Um, but my question is, let's imagine you're a tribal community and an LPFM seems like the right thing. Why wouldn't you just go ahead and apply for a Class A FM? What is the upside to an LPFM over the regular commercial Class A route?
there. Getting a commercial or non-commercial full service station is a totally different animal. Um,
It sure is. Yeah.
the To get a commercial Class A, let's say, you would have to do a frequency search and show that a frequency is available in the community you want to serve, that the
Mhm.
community is uh, it qualifies as a community, and that it has a local government, it has some local stuff going on.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Okay.
and then you go to the FCC with an application for a new station, along with a petition for rulemaking to allocate the channel to that town.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the next step is the FCC says, yeah, okay, we like this idea. And they go out and they say, okay, we have a proposed rulemaking to serve Smallville with a new Class A on 97.7 or whatever.
Mhm.
And they open it up to competing applications. Well, maybe 97.7 works in, Tigerville over here or someplace else. And people can come in and say, okay, they can file competing applications
Mm.
to
Mhm.
allocate that channel to other communities. And if that happens, then they go through a whole analysis called a 307B analysis, which determines which of the proposed communities is more preferred from among the proposals. They allocate the channel to that community. And then, and that process probably takes 2 or 3 years. Once
Oh.
that's
Mhm.
gone through, then the channel comes up for auction at the next commercial FM auction. When was the
Mm.
last time we had one? In a long time. I don't remember. It's been years. So, you're embarking to create a new commercial station in a community. You're paying upfront for the engineering and for the application fee.
Mhm.
You're certainly paying lawyers to get it done. You're probably paying lawyers and engineers to work on the comparative, community showings, which one's better.
Mhm.
Um, and at the end of that process, even if it gets assigned to your little town of Smallville, you do not get a pioneer preference. You get nothing for that, all that effort. Anybody can come in and bid on that channel and beat you out. So
Gotcha.
there's no
Yeah.
there's no uh, there's no assurance in this. There's no it's just not, it's a difficult business plan
Yeah. Yeah.
to propose a new commercial station.
Gotcha. I've been through the process, or my business partner Larry Fuss has certainly been through that process, and I'm sure many have. So there's no pioneer preference like there was decades ago.
Right.
There may be some minority preferences, but still, you got to have money. You got to bid on this auction process, right?
Yeah, you
Uh,
got to have money, and if you own other stations, you're automatically at a disadvantage because there's a new entrant preference.
okay,
So if you
okay.
don't own stations and you bid, your bid is worth more than the number of dollars you bid.
I was just thinking, what a crazy way to allocate radio stations. I mean, I know it's such a patchwork, and it's made sense each step of the way to the political pressures that went into it. But what if we hired airline pilots this way? Okay, whoever has the most money and it's the first time they've flown an airplane, you'll get to fly. You'll get the job to fly the airplane.
That's pretty much the way it would work.
Jeez.
It, it, it's it's a um, it's a system that's evolved over you know 50, 60 years really,
Yeah.
with little changes. One case determines a a precedent that affects every case that follows, and
Well,
sometimes these
this
things aren't decided well, and it just gets to be a snowball.
I
So
think,
that's
and
that's the
I don't think
commercial thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're here to talk about LPFMs, which will continue
Right.
in just a minute. But people still ask me, how do I get a radio station? How do I apply for a new station? Your best bet these days is to buy an existing station because most of them are on sale. Some of them are on fire sale. But my business partner in radio stations, Larry Fuss, we have picked up now small town Mississippi, small town Hawaii. We have a Hawaii station, but we got it for what I think is a pretty low price. But there are stations all across America that are for sale for far less than it costs to build them,
Yep.
and maybe less money than you would get one at auction if there even was an auction. So if you want a radio station,
Go
buy
buy one.
one that's already on the air. Um,
Yeah.
but also just like if you want to buy a gas station on the strip in Las Vegas, it's going to cost you millions. If you want to buy a gas station at the corner of Short and Main Street in West Undershirt, Arkansas, you can have it for a song. Probably put it on a credit card, right?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right.
And
Hey,
and
we're talking
that's
to
that's how it works.
yeah, yeah, we're
That's
talking to Dave
that's how it
Doherty,
works.
and Dave, you provided some graphics and some file output from the FCC that's terribly interesting, and I want to get to it, but we are going to get to a an advertisement first, one of our sponsor messages. And I'm sorry, I've got to go run and look at my notes. I didn't have them quite ready. Oh yeah, Angry Audio and Max Connect. They are the two sponsors in this quick break. And since Chris isn't here, I'm going to tell you about them myself. First of all, Angry Audio. I just got done building a studio in Oxford, Mississippi. And I got to tell you, we put in some Angry Audio headphone amps, of the guest gizmo, the headphone gizmo, and they are absolutely delightful to put those in. We're also going to probably be getting one of the little Rave consoles. And if I can get Suncast to go to the Angry Audio website, we're going to look at a couple things. The Rave console, I got to pre-sell this thing. It's just amazing. They are starting to ship any day now. And it's an analog console. It features the Studio Hub connectors for input and output. There it is. It is a beautiful little console. I got to play with and hold a prototype for this thing. The power supply is built in. It's got mic inputs, it's got line inputs and outputs. Now it's analog. This is not an audio over IP console. And you know how much I love those. But sometimes you just need to mix a few things together with analog ins and analog outs and get you a console. There's the back of it right there. You see all the connectors there on the back. They're for the most part, they are the RJ45 style connector from Studio Hub. Now, there are a few XLR connectors on there for outputs as well. Clear visual meters on the top. The lighting is perfect. The faders feel good. This is one sexy, beautiful little console. And if you're in need of a console, I really encourage you to check this thing out. Channels 1 through 4 are switchable between mics and lines. There's a preview or cue available for every input. The on-off buttons are slightly recessed to prevent accidental actuation. You can talk back to guests, so you have individual headphone outputs, and you can talk back to your guests. There are two mix minus outputs with talkback, and channel 7 and 8 are capable of that mix minus. It's got a really nice wrist rest. That's the curved part on the front. Just love this thing. It's an awesome little console, and I'm anticipating that you're going to love it too. I got to put in some other Angry Audio stuff, and that, for so long I've been talking about the headphone gizmo. That's the one I say you won't snag your pantyhose on because it's nice and curved. Well, I showed one of those to our morning guy in Oxford, Mississippi, and I said, "What would you think about this mounted right under here? And you could plug your headphones into it." He loved it, and so I went down to the factory in Franklin, Tennessee, picked one up from Mike Dosh, and put it in there just a couple days ago. And our morning guy loves it. It's just a wonderful headphone amp. It has both kinds of input or outputs. The 1/4 inch tip ring sleeve and the 3.5 millimeter tip ring sleeve. Easy to wire up. I ran a little wall wart power supply over to it with 16 volts AC, and then ran my cable from. In fact, I grabbed a cable off the shelf, a Cat 5 cable, plugged it in, and hooked it up to the output of an Axia X node, and bam, it's just beautiful. So check it out from angryaudio.com. Hey, our show, there's the website right there, Angry Audio. Our show is also brought to you by Max Connect Wireless. And I know for 3 or 4 years now, we've been talking about their wireless IP service that is it's done using Cradlepoint or other modems on the 4G LTE network. And I got to tell you, when the same station in Mississippi, we got that thing hooked up, and we had fiber service on order for months, and the fiber supplier was just kind of slow in getting it done. So we put a Max Connect wireless box at the transmitter site, and it worked just great. So great. Let me see. Gary Morrill is here, and he's going to tell you about it real quick, and I'll be right back. Here's Gary.
I'm Gary Morrill, Midwest Regional Director of Engineering for Alpha Media. When I first spoke with Josh Bone about Max Connect, he told me they'd work great for remote transmitter sites where connectivity was a challenge. And he's absolutely right. We even have sites where we're using this as a backup to our STL using Max Connect's dual carrier option, and it works perfectly. We also have times where we need to be able to get out to a venue where it's kind of challenging because everybody and his brother is trying to stream video at the same time, like at a big sporting event. And you know what? Our data gets through every time because it's prioritized packet data. It works for us. It'll work for you. Max Connect. Check it out.
We checked it out, and we used that Max Connect wireless for almost a month at the transmitter site. We remoted in, got all our stuff configured. We even had streams. We were streaming out of it. Fantastic box, fixed IP address, and prioritized data, and we were just absolutely delighted. Now, we got the fiber in this past week. On Monday night, the guy finished up the fiber installation, and so now we're off of the Max Connect box. But thank goodness for that lifesaver, the Max Connect wireless box. MaxConnect.com. There's the Max Connect group at maxconnect.com. I know it's spelled funny, and that's what you need to check out right there. All right, thanks a lot, Angry Audio and Max Connect, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. Two companies you need to know about because they'll make your life better as a broadcast engineer. We're talking to Dave Doherty, and we're getting around now to talking about the LPFM window and some interesting LPFM engineering topics. Dave, I'm going to let you direct where we're going to go in our conversation next. We do have some graphics to show, so whenever you're ready, why don't you just let Suncast know, and we'll pop them up on screen.
Okay, well, so I've been working on software for many, many years, and I tend to be a visual thinker. I like maps, I like diagrams, I like graphs and charts and things like that, rather than spreadsheets full of numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So what I developed here is a visual allocation tool, and I'll give you an example. Suncast, if you could put up the first one. This is a map of the United States, the CONUS, obviously not including Alaska and Hawaii. Everywhere that is red, deep red, those are areas where an LPFM station would be too close to a channel 6 station. The larger circles are full service channel 6, the smaller ones are translators, LPTV, Class A TV, stuff like that. So you can see, I think my count was 90 stations operating on
Mm.
channel 6. And they do have a pretty significant impact in some areas, like look at Pennsylvania, for example.
Hmm.
The more salmon color red is areas where an LPFM station would be too close to another station, either a full service station, a translator, another LPFM. And so you would not be able to put an LPFM station in either the darker red or the salmon. The yellow areas are areas where you would meet the minimum spacing requirement, but you could expect to receive interference from other stations. And then the white areas are where you're basically free to go. So if you look at
Gotcha.
this, you
Hmm.
see, what you would normally expect. Most of the East Coast is pretty much jammed up. There's a few little spots here and there. There's, South Carolina. There's a couple in Virginia, upstate New York and the Adirondacks, and upstate Maine. And then before to get into any other significant areas, you're into places where population density is very low. Central
Yeah.
Oregon, Nevada, the Dakotas, mountain Montana. So this particular one is 88.1, channel 201. FM channels, in addition to frequencies, FM frequencies are associated with channel numbers that go from 201 for 88.1 to 300 for 107.9.
Dave, this is worth pointing out for those not familiar with these kind of maps. This map represents one FM channel, one FM
That's
frequency.
correct.
It's going to be different for other channels, but if you want to put a station on this frequency, I'm sorry, what'd you say this was?
This is
88.1?
88.1. Yep.
Yeah, this
So,
is where you couldn't put one, and the white
well,
areas are where you could.
where you could, right, and the yellow
Yeah,
areas are where you could, but you could expect to get some interference.
gotcha,
So
gotcha. So,
the yellow
mhm,
areas typically surround the salmon areas by a few kilometers, sometimes a lot more. It
mhm,
just depends on the circumstances. But this shows for 88.1 every conflict. Channel 6, uh, co-channel conflicts on 88.1, first adjacents on 88.3, second adjacents on 88.5. There are some special rules for third adjacent. You don't have to protect a third adjacent, but if you do interfere, you're going to have a bit of a problem. Um, and there are also 200 protected full service stations that aired radio reading services on subcarriers in the year 2000 who are on a list that have to be protected
mhm.
on the third adjacent. That's all included
Ah,
in this. All of that is
okay.
built in here.
It's
Okay.
okay. So that's
So
it's yeah, yeah.
so this is the non-commercial band. This is the reserve band below 92. This one happens to be 88.1. But they all look very similar. Now, once you get above 92 megahertz and you're into the commercial band, you no longer have to protect channel 6. So if we can have the
Mm.
next slide, Suncast, you'll see that now we don't have any more of those reds. Um,
Yeah,
but we
yeah.
still have a very similar situation. Got some space in upstate Maine. This one happens to be 97.5, I think. Um, So we got some space in upstate Maine. We've got these little yellow areas here and there, and some more areas that you could put a station. But again, they're generally areas where there's not a lot of population.
Now, I'd
Um,
like to point out, Dave, that these salmon circles, the pink circles here, those are commercial stations with significantly larger coverage area than an LPFM would have. These aren't LPFMs. These are the stations that you can't locate too close to because you'll interfere with them and they'll clobber you if you're inside their area,
right.
right?
Some of them
Okay.
are LPFMs and some are translators. They're all
Oh, I
included in
do
the
see some
study.
tiny little circles. Yeah, I see a few
Yes.
tiny
Yeah.
circles. Yeah.
Those would be translators or LPFMs.
Okay.
Um, the co-channel spacing for LPFMs is 24 kilometers, or about maybe 18, 19 miles. So they can be pretty
Okay.
close together. So they don't preclude a whole lot. So when you see a tiny little spot like that one in Nebraska there, it's just that's probably an LPFM or a small translator.
If I was in the real estate business, I might think if you want to buy a cheap house or some cheap land, go to the white areas because ain't nobody there.
Yeah.
Of course, out west, a lot of that is federal land. It's not for sale.
Well, yeah, that is true. Um,
Yeah.
and BLM controls a lot of that, that terrain up there. And then when you look at Nevada, I mean, Nevada is basically Las Vegas, Elko, and sand.
Right. Yeah.
There are other places there, but that's, I mean, fundamentally, um, there's not a lot of population in that area.
And there's
Uh,
Reno. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And then, and as you, if you start at Salt Lake and you go west, you're on Highway 50, or the interstate that goes through that, which is both considered like the loneliest roads in the world.
I'm sure. Well,
And
cool. Okay. Well,
trust me,
that
I've driven them.
so
There's nothing there.
there are some slivers of space east of the Mississippi that you could put
Yes.
an LPFM on this frequency, and it's different for different frequencies, but this is
Every
a good example.
frequency is different. And one of the
Mhm.
cool things is that I take these 100 frequencies that make up the FM band, and
Mhm.
I produce these maps for every single frequency nationally, like you see here, or in your local area, which we'll show a couple of examples of in a couple minutes.
Mhm.
And when I upload them into a PDF document, you can use the scroll on your mouse, or you can use page up and page down, and basically run the movie on the entire band. So if you're looking for a channel in a particular location, you can just scroll through the entire band, channel by channel.
Oh, okay.
It's
Okay.
really cool. I'm sorry we can't show that here. It was something that I had really hoped to show, but if you think of these as you scroll your mouse, you can think of these circles as kind of moving around, and coming and going, and it's a pretty cool effect.
Yeah, and even if you live in a near a populated area, you might find a channel that happens to have a sliver of yellow or white in an
Right.
area that you'd be interested in your LPFM, and that's the frequency that you would start to be interested in.
And that's why a prospecting tool like this is very helpful. Um, let's go to the next. Let's see. This is going to be Corvallis Channel Finder. Let's look at the Channel
Ah,
Finder first.
so this is a okay. This is a way close up on kind of what we saw before.
Right. So, Suncast, can you put up the Channel Finder for Corvallis? Do you have that?
Is that the document from the FCC, the output?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the PDF.
Okay,
There
there
we
it is.
go.
Okay. So here is the FCC makes available a thing called a Channel Finder. Available
Okay.
online. The only thing you need to know is latitude and longitude. And you can go look up the
Ah.
latitude and longitude of any community in the country online very easily, and you stick it in there, and this tells you what is available in that community. All 100 FM channels are studied. It happens very quickly. Um,
Mhm.
it gives you results that are very, very fast. And you'll notice that, here we have no channels that are completely available, but we've got one, two, three, I think there were four that
Mhm.
have second adjacent channel issues. If you scroll back up a little bit. Um, yeah,
So they
so
describe
they're
the issues, yeah.
okay. And so this 207, which is the channel number for 89.3, look at the
Mhm.
note. The channel is short space to low power TV channel 6 station. That means that special rules apply. You can go to them and you can ask for a waiver, which they can grant or not. If they grant it, then you have a second adjacent issue to resolve with respect to KLCC. If we go down a little bit, there's 254, 98.7. You can see why I like to deal with channel numbers. It's just so much easier. Um, but we have a total of 4 channels that are available, and they all have second adjacent interference issues that need to be addressed with special studies, with maybe a special antenna, but need to be addressed anyway. They're not grantable as is without a special showing, and critical, a waiver request checkbox on the form. Okay, so now let's go to that Corvallis map. And now you can see, well, here's channel 265, isn't it? No, 280. Wait a minute. 289. That did not show up on the channel finder at all. And it's absolutely right. It didn't, because we used the coordinates of Corvallis. What it did
Ah,
not
okay.
tell you is that
Mhm.
nearby to Corvallis, this frequency is wide open, and it might be useful to you.
And you
Um,
were saying that you're a visual person because, a textual output is gonna tell you the truth for that point on the map, but there might be a point nearby. This is, yeah, okay, okay.
Precisely.
This is why some airlines offer, hey, if your dates are flexible, we'll show you other fares, maybe a lower
Right.
one, a day before, 3 days after, that kind of thing. Okay,
Yeah,
so that's
and
why the
it might not
visuals
go
help.
from it might not go from Seattle. It might go from Bremerton or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah. Um, but this is why I say this kind of tool is really helpful if you're searching for a transmitter or searching for a channel to serve a community. Um,
So what does
and
this tell us? Where could we put something on the left?
well, it could go with remember the yellow is an area where you could expect to get interference. Now this is
Hmm.
very simplified. It really has nothing to do really with the real world. If you're serious about this, we want to do some studies using terrain data to determine what kind of interference you can really expect. But
Oh
this is the
yeah.
very simplified methodology that the FCC came up with that says, okay, if you're in this yellow area, you could expect to get interference. If you're in this white area, you can expect not to. Um, and
Oh, but
expectation
terrain
is
is
the key
not.
thing.
This is mileage only, right? This is no
It's
terrain
mileage only. It
included.
has nothing to do with terrain. And if you know this part of the country, there's a world of mountains between Salem and Corvallis. None of this makes any sense in the real world. But
Now,
this is how the
a consultant like yourself, Dave, would if you found a prospective location here, would you then go do I don't know what you call a Longley Rice study or some other terrain study to see
yeah
what your
yeah
expected
I
coverage
use
might be?
I use PTP, point to point protocol, or point to point.
Hmm.
It's similar to Longley Rice. It has fewer adjustments you can make, so it's more consistent from
Hmm.
one practitioner to another. The FCC accepts it just as well as they accept Longley Rice. I've used it
Okay.
for a number of cases. Um, I happen to like it because it more closely reflects what I've experienced in the world, driving signals and listening to them, having them drop out where the model says they should drop out.
Okay.
Um, but so yeah, I mean, if you wanted to put an LPFM station in Albany, Oregon, we would then say, okay, we'll pick a transmitter site, we'll get it set up, and we'll run an interference study and see what you can expect your actual coverage to be.
Hmm.
Um, Now, if you wanted to put one in Lebanon, the FCC would not let you do that because it's short spaced. So,
Right.
but you do have the
Right.
option in Albany. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about.
You have the
The
option.
LPFM uh, the LPFM allocation system is purely mileage, as purely as anything gets with the FCC, mileage based,
Uh
okay,
huh.
distance based, as opposed to interference based.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And that gets into some conflicts with translators because translators are allocated based on contour overlap. And when terrain gets weird, you can get some really anomalous situations that are very
Hmm.
difficult to resolve between a translator and an LPFM. But here we are. So the channel finder showed nothing in Corvallis, and it was right. There's something
Yeah.
nearby.
And
Um,
and you and I know we're not looking at the entire file here. We're just looking at that one channel with Corvallis pretty well centered there. But you and I, before the show, looked at that, and there were only a couple of channels that had any chance of being anywhere near Corvallis. The rest were all excluded uh, by.
right.
By being in salmon, pink areas. So the reason we're showing that graphic is here's one that no, you can't get right in Corvallis, but you can go just outside Corvallis and maybe hit the audience that you're looking for, especially if they're on the west side of Corvallis.
Right. So let us travel across the country now to
Okay.
Westerly, Rhode Island, and let's do the Westerly Channel Finder first.
Oh, and Wesley's the name of a town. Okay.
Westerly, Rhode Island.
All
Let's
righty.
look at the Westerly Channel Finder. There we go. Okay, so here we have again the coordinates of the city, um, and as you scroll down, you'll see one, two, three, only three channels available, and only with waivers. And then it says 269, 107, 101.7 is available. Okay, um,
Hmm.
so we're going to look at the Westerly map now. And this is for channel 225. Remember, that channel did not show up at all in the channel finder.
Oh, yeah.
But look how close to Westerly you can be. I mean, that's
Yeah.
2 kilometers east of town, maybe. like that.
Yeah.
And there are
Okay.
several other channels that are similarly situated. Again, the LPFM channel finder says no, it's not available, um, but yeah, in reality it is. And if you look a little bit uh, northwest of there, you find a tiny little spot east of Norwich where you could, if anybody lives there or you had some interest there, you could actually drop an LPFM station in there, and there's no way on earth you're going to find that opportunity with a channel finder tech.
Right. Yeah, it's only graphically you would see that. Well, I know where that is. That's the east half of the pond on the Gunnison farm.
It could be totally underwater, but
Yeah.
you'd be amazed how many commercial stations were allocated on the basis of little tiny spots like this
You're right.
over the
You're
years,
right. Where you
and TVs as
and
well.
um how does rounding work into this mileage separation? Does it figure in?
You can round to the next the next even number. Like, let's say the requirement is 24 kilometers, you can be 23.5 and still meet the spec. And
Ah,
these maps all
okay.
take that into account.
Oh, they do.
You are
They've
allowed,
already taken in. Okay.
yeah. If the rule states that a requirement is 24 miles or 24 kilometers or whatever it is, 23.5 is acceptable. If it says it's 24.1, then you're
Yeah.
into 24.05, rounding up to 24.1.
Interesting.
So you have to pay
Okay.
attention to the
Okay.
rule that you're reading in order to determine how to round it.
Okay. All right, good. So, yeah, Westerly's got a possibility there in Rhode Island. And help me with my geography. Is that Connecticut immediately to the west of Rhode Island?
It is. It is.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's the I-95 corridor up from New York to Boston.
Ah,
You
yeah.
go through New London, Groton, the submarine base
Yep.
there,
Then there. Yeah.
Mystic, Connecticut, um, then into Westerly, and then you go through southern rural Rhode Island, which has just some lovely, lovely beach communities, and then on up into Providence, and then up into the or the Boston metro area.
We're gonna continue in a couple minutes. We're talking to Dave Doherty. Dave is an expert at many engineering things, and one of them is helping you apply for an LPFM. We're gonna have some information about Dave's business called skywaves.com. You can go to his website there at skywaves.com and get you some consulting for seeing if an ask Dave Doherty if an LPFM is right for you. And he can get you an answer pretty quickly. I'm Kirk Harnack. You're watching or listening to This Week in Radio Tech. And our show is brought to you in part by Broadcasters General Store and their featured manufacturer, Broadcast Tools. Now, you've known Broadcast Tools for many, many years, as I have. And one of the things that you probably don't know about, and I think that may be because I think am I correct in saying that it's free? Suncast, if you pop did I provide you a page for that? I thought I did. I meant to. Yeah, the NetSwitch 3. Yeah, it's free. That's why you won't find it on any price list. The NetSwitch 3 free switcher control and scheduling software. Hey, not everybody needs this, but if you do, this is some pretty cool stuff. NetSwitch Free is a free PC-based graphical control and event scheduler application for Broadcast Tools switchers. Now, the NetSwitch software may be used with all of Broadcast Tool switchers, and along with switchers from other manufacturers that allow serial single computer or Ethernet LAN WAN operation. It can work both ways. Broadcast Tools really does, as you know, if you've used their equipment, and they make a huge variety of things. We certainly use their silent sensors at transmitter sites, places where we can't conveniently have an audio over IP network or a PC running. We'll use Broadcast Tools hardware to alert us of dead air or a channel gone, that kind of thing. And Chris Tarr loves these things too. He uses the web-based silent sensors. But this NetSwitch 3 is again, it's absolutely free, and maybe that's why you don't find the dealers recommending it a whole lot, because they don't make any money from it. But you can go to the Broadcast Tools website and check it out there. Broadcast Tools, listen up here if you're not familiar with them. They make satellite channel controllers to do satellite channel switching. They make audio mixers and distribution amps. They make silence monitors and program schedulers, especially when you use them with the NetSwitch 3. The Broadcast Tools line is available from top distributors, and one of those certainly is Broadcasters General Store. You can go to their website of Broadcasters General Store at bgs.cc. There you see it online. It's really convenient, bgs.cc. And, I don't know, in this day and age when it's sometimes tough to get people on the phone, maybe you don't want to get somebody on the phone. Maybe you do want to get somebody on the phone. BGS really has built their business around talking to you and listening to you on the phone. They are really set up this way, from their salespeople who work from home and the salespeople who work from their office in Ocala, Florida. They have got custom software that they have literally built over the last 20 or 30 years to get you accurate quotes, to get you the best discount you can possibly get, to find out availability and shipping options and how soon you can have your piece of equipment. Whether you're ordering something from Broadcast Tools, or maybe you need a CD player. Remember when you used to use those all the time? Maybe you need something like I do. I bought some Telos Alliance hardware and software lately, and we order ours through Broadcasters General Store. They got sharp pencils there. We get a nice discount, and but no nicer than you'd get if you called them up. So contact Broadcast General Store at 352-622-7700. That's 352-622-7700. Put that on speed dial. I mean, put that into your phone's Rolodex, if you will, and your contact list, and you'll be really glad you did. I've been dealing with BGS for literally years. When Sam Phillips owned some radio stations, and the guy who discovered Elvis, the guy who recorded Elvis's first song, had a had a contract with Elvis for half his money for the rest of his life, and sold it all for $33,000 and built a radio station all in Memphis, Tennessee. My goodness. Well, and hey, just a month ago, I got to spend the evening with one of Sam's sons, Jerry Phillips, at a gala awards event. Anyway, I didn't mean to run off on that topic, but BGS is such a great place, and so many good people work there, and they really have sharp pencils and availability as good as anybody else's. Check them out. Thanks a lot, Broadcasters General Store, and thanks so much, Don Wingett at Broadcast Tools, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. All right, I'm Kirk Harnack in the Telos Alliance studio in Nashville. Dave Doherty is with me right here. Dave, what part of the world are you in? I failed to ask. Where are you at?
Well, I currently live in a place called Bainbridge Island, Washington, which is
Yes, actually, you told me that a while ago, near Seattle.
It's across the Puget Sound from Seattle. It's a 35-minute ferry ride. So we get access to the big metropolitan area, but we have a nice, just an easy lifestyle here on the island.
We'll get back to the LPFM.
Grandkids live about a mile away, which is
nice.
That's why we're here.
What's your weather been there? What's your weather been like lately? Has it been hot like a lot of the rest of the country, or not?
It has not been as hot as the rest of the country, because we're surrounded by the Puget Sound, so our temperatures here are about 10 to 15 degrees lower than they are in Seattle typically on a hot day. It's been up in the 90s to 100, and we've had some inland temperatures up in 110 or so, off and on. But we have had a very warm, dry summer here, to the point now where, for the first time in a lot of people's memory, fire is a real concern.
Okay.
It's a very rural area. There's a lot of open fields. There's a lot of forest, and it's just one of those things. You just have to be prepared for it. We have a very
sometimes I think of Washington State, and I think of apple industry, and I think of the wine industry. Is any of that in your area? Is that more in central Washington?
That's across the Cascade Mountains from us.
Okay.
So Washington is in the west. It's the Olympic Mountains and the coast, and then we have Puget Sound, which is the Seattle and the whole metropolitan area here. Then the Cascade Mountains, Mount Rainier, Mount Baker. On the other side of the Cascades, you slope down into Yakima, Wenatchee, Moses Lake, all the way down into Spokane. That is orchard country on the slopes, wine country, and then it goes into farmland. There's some very fertile farmland in the center of Washington State. It's all made available by the fact that we have the Grand Coulee Dam and they basically unlimited power to run deep wells to irrigate
Ah,
farmland.
gotcha. Gotcha. All right. Well,
So it's an
we're here to
interesting
talk.
place. It's very diverse.
We're here to talk about LPFM, and so what else? What more do we have to hit on this topic?
I think we've covered most of what we can cover in an hour.
Mhm.
I would say if anybody here is interested in, taking advantage of some of these frequency searches, I'm more than happy to provide them. Charge for them, of course. So I've got a lot of development time, but they're very useful, and I'm happy to provide them to other consultants who think they might be able to use them. I'll help people with applications. I'm not a lawyer. You need a lawyer. Trust me on this. LPFM applications need lawyers. Every
Ah, okay.
every I has to be dotted, every T has to be crossed exactly the right way. Because if you get into a competitive situation where you've got two or three or four or 10 applicants who are in a mutual exclusive group, then they go down and they look at everything, all the way down to the most minute details. And there are special procedures you can use if you find yourself in an MX group. You can um, there are things you may be able to do, things you may not be able to do. Um, but it's really the province of lawyers and engineers to work out what happens when you find yourself in an MX group. Most LPFMs, typically, in my experience in the last window, were singleton. They were not in MX groups, but I was involved in two that were three-way groups, and
Mhm.
we had to negotiate. In both cases, we had to negotiate um, operating agreements and transmitter sites and all kinds of stuff among the three applicants that stood up in the end.
Earlier in the
So,
show, I mentioned your website, skywaves.com. And actually, had I gone and read the couple things that are on your website, I would have known the answer to some questions. I'm glad I had a chance to ask you, and you answered verbally. But if you want to get a reminder of, for example, some of the requirements for LPFMs, it's right there on Dave's website. It's skywaves.com. If you want to know some of the requirements, basic information about LPFM stations, there's a link right for that. And I'll put these in the show notes, by the way. There's also a link that shows some sample plots both in the both domains. Let's see, looking down on the Earth and looking sideways at a path, for example. If you need to run an STL or a microwave path, Dave's got a lot of good samples there, and you can see how that works. Dave's been involved in construction projects as well, and then is this page old or current? This new commercial channels, Dave, that's got a list of commercial channels.
that's recent.
Okay.
Probably at this point, maybe a year old. The FCC went through a couple of auction cycles for commercial channels that were allocated for non-commercial use. There's about
Ah,
90 of them or so. They're
yeah,
they're officially non-commercial educational allocations, but they're in the commercial band.
yeah, sure.
And there are
Okay.
certain circumstances in which you can have this done and all that. They went through a couple of auction cycles. Nobody was interested, so they removed the non-commercial nature of that allocation. So those allocations are now available for commercial use. You have to wait for a window. The window will come up sooner or later, and then commercial interests will be able to bid on those. And there's a list of those channels right on the website.
Oh, so I've got a question. I'm sorry, I don't have all the information here at hand. In Hawaii, on the island of Kauai,
Mhm.
we have a station that is licensed to the little community of Hanapepe, and that's fine, except that of course we're required to city grade Hanapepe, and because
Mhm.
of the terrain of the island of Kauai, that's a little inconvenient because that's not where the population is. There's a small
Mhm.
population in Hanapepe, and they deserve to be served, but our commercial interests dictate that we kind of like to serve, where the bigger population is. And
Right.
so, here's where I don't know the details. Is it? It seems like we applied for a non-commercial station to go there, and I don't know what class or what kind, but it seems like that's all getting worked out. So my question, I guess, comes up being: is there any kind of class of station that doesn't require a filing window that you can put in to replace something that you want to move out? Am I speaking just outside of my head, or is there some truth to what I'm thinking?
Yeah, there have been a lot of changes over the last 10 or 15 years. The rural radio policy came out.
Hmm.
You basically you can change. What you're talking about is changing your community of license,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and I assume that would involve changing your transmitter site as well,
We
or at
would
least
like to eventually, yes. We're in a very inconvenient location so that we can city grade Hanapepe as well as hit most of the rest of the populated part of the island.
okay. So there's a pretty much absolute prohibition on removing the only station serving a community of any size.
Right.
The exceptions are if you can establish that the community dissolved and was taken over by the county or it merged with another community, stuff like that. Absent that,
Mhm.
you're going to have to serve on a pay. So, can you, in a, let's say, a non-commercial educational window, propose a new station to serve Hanapepe
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
what we call backfill your coverage in
Yes.
that community and
That's the word, yes.
allow you to move to a different community? The answer is yes, that can be done. It's fraught with all kinds of issues, but if you have a lot of patience, it's been done and it can be done.
Okay, okay, but you mentioned a filing, the next filing window, so that can't just be done outside of a filing window, I take it.
Right, right. No
Okay,
new station can be proposed outside of a filing window. There are some exceptions in Alaska for particular cases, but they don't
yeah,
apply anywhere else, as far as I know.
okay,
Um,
okay,
a- and so you in Kauai, of course, the terrain there is such that you will never serve 100% of the population of the island. It's just not going to
yeah,
happen with an.
exactly, exactly,
So,
yeah,
so you want a transmitter site that serves the most people you can get.
yeah,
Um,
well, we're missing that cushy area of where the wealthy people vacation, and that's Princeville, up in the
right.
northern part
Oh,
of
yeah.
the island.
That's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I know something about Kauai.
and we've found a tower or two that would be great to go on, but the owners of those towers think that they're made of gold. So they're
Well, if they're in
woo.
Hawaii, they probably are, ha-
They may
having
be.
experienced having to hang an LPFM antenna in a tree and some other
Oh my
wonderful
gosh.
things.
Really? Oh my gosh. Wow. Hey,
Uh, c-
hey, at the very end of our show, Dave, what we usually do is save it for a tip of the week. And so I'm going to be looking to you in a few minutes for a tip of the week. What would you recommend people do? Let's say that you're part of a church organization or a an ethnic group, or a group of guys who likes to get together and, I don't know, play outdoor lawn darts on Thursday afternoons, but you'd like to have a radio station. What's the next step for people who thought, well, we'd always thought about having a radio station to serve our community of like-minded interests, people, whatever it may be. We're going to get I'd like to get step 1 and step 2 from you right after we come back from this announcement. Dave
sure.
Doherty is my guest. He's with skywaves.com. He's a consultant to the broadcast industry, and when LPFM comes along, Dave speaks up because he's a big fan of this service and how it helps people out. Our show is brought to you in part by Broadcast Bionics. And this past week, actually the past month, I've had the opportunity to install some of these containerized software programs that do broadcast things. So at my station, my new station in Oxford, Mississippi, I have put in an audio console, an Axia Altus audio console at the transmitter site running in a software container on a Linux server. Also put in a phone system, a Telos VXS phone system, also running in a software container on that same computer. And we can take phone calls, put them on the air. It's really cool, just amazing. Well, Broadcast Bionics is letting you do the same thing, but in a way that's really, really easy. And if Suncast can bring up there we go. This is the virtual rack. Now, I know it looks like a server, but what's cool about this is Broadcast Bionics, and they got some clever minds up there. They have arranged this thing where, I tell you, this thing is kind of like a vending machine. All right, you turn it on and you browse into it, and you get like an app store of broadcast products that run in software containers. So you pick the things that you want. Let me suggest you pick a couple of Axia Altus consoles and load them up with some extra faders, if you like, and then load them up with WebRTC remote connectivity. Just turn those things on. Now, you'll still need a license. Anything you turn on that you want to use, you'll need to license it from their respective manufacturers. Telos Alliance, of course, is one of them. There's an Omnia Forza processing available. There we go. There's some Telos Alliance things that are available there, including the VXS phone system and the Altus console, and the Forza audio processing is in there. And there's a couple other manufacturers represented as well. To be honest, I haven't paid close attention to who they are. I thought there was something in there from Diva and maybe even something from Orban. But these are, it's like an app store. You fill out some registration information, you click on the icons for the things you want to install, and in a few minutes, bam, they are installed. And then you need to go license them from their respective manufacturers. And so what you get is broadcast functionality in this server. Of course, you got full possibilities for failover, for backup, things like that. And on this web page, if you go to Broadcast Bionics, on this web page, you can see a couple of video interviews with Dan McQuillan. And on a previous, not too long ago, TWiRT show, we interviewed Dan, and he demonstrated how these things work. So I highly encourage you to check out this kind of technology. So many other industries have moved from purpose-built hardware, whatever it was, into the world of software containers. They run extremely reliable in a Linux operating system, and broadcast with audio over IP, and all the ways that we communicate using IP technology. You can have something that's fast, reliable, sounds absolutely perfect. I mean, the audio is just perfect from these things. And I love this. And the fact that Broadcast Bionics has made this so accessible and so easy with virtual rack, it's worth checking out. Go to bionics.co.uk or bionic.radio. We'll have links in the show notes, and check this out. I'll put links to those video interviews with Dan McQuillan as well in the show notes. All right, check it out. Virtual rack from Broadcast Bionics. It's coming. Well, it's where we are going as engineers and as an industry. All right, we got our last couple of minutes here with Dave Doherty on This Week in Radio Tech. Dave is a specialist in filing for stations, finding out where you can put a transmitter. And today we're talking about LPFMs because of the window that opens up in early November. Dave, all right, I'm looking for a tip of the week. What should people do who think they have an interest in owning a low power FM radio station? Oh, I think you're muted, Dave. There we go. Oh, there we go. We got it. No, we got you. We got you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So the first thing is, assess your audience, where they're located, how far spread out they are, and whether you can even serve them with an LPFM station. What kind of programming you're going to want to feed into the transmitter to serve this population. Whether you have the resources to provide at least 8 hours a day of programming on a live basis.
Yeah.
And if you decide, if you go through that self-examination process and you feel, yeah, this is something we want to pursue, then get hold of a good engineering consultant and get a hold of a good FCC attorney. Start the process rolling. It's not too late. The actual FCC application form that they'll be using in November is already online, so you can set yourself up with what's called an FRN, a FCC registration number. Access the library, the LMS system, licensing management system, and act like you're going to start up a new LPFM radio station. Click the file an application and click on new LPFM, and that'll give you the form that is the basis of everything you're going to file with the FCC.
Gotcha. And you said this is not really a do-it-yourself project. You need some professional help to fill out the form correctly with information that will pass muster.
Yeah, the original idea was that any community organization with very little technical skills could theoretically go to the channel finder, find a channel, file the application, and go. And and in reality, if you have no competition for that channel, then you can probably get away with that. But in reality, particularly in larger areas, there's going to be, after 10 years, there's going to be a lot of pent up demand, and you'll probably wind up with a situation where you're competing with somebody for the channel, and that's when everything has to be just totally nailed down.
Good deal. Good deal. And there's your website that people can go to, and that is skywaves.com. And if you have any other resources you'd like me to stick in the show notes, Dave, send me a quick email and I'll put them in there as well. Dave Doherty, thank you so much for being with us. It's good to talk to you after it's been almost 3 years since we've seen you here on the show. So thank you very much for joining us. Always good to hear your happy voice.
No, thanks. I'm glad to participate. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Dave Doherty's been our guest, LPFM expert. Skywaves.com is the website. I'm Kirk Harnack. Thanks so much to our sponsors. I hope you'll patronize them and give them, your interest. And if you need something that they do, well, please ring them up, email them, go to their website, whatever it may be. Thanks a lot to Suncast for engineering today's show, producing it. I really appreciate Suncast's efforts. And thanks to Andrew Zarian, the founder of the GFQ Network. I hope, let's see, Chris Tarr should be with us back next week. In fact, I'm having dinner with Chris Tarr and Jeff Welton here this Sunday night. So I'll beat up on him. No, I'll give him a hug for you. Okay. How about that? I'm Kirk
Tell
Harnack.
Jeff I said hi.
I will, Dave. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio